Podcast and live video stream. It's a real honor to be your host today. My name is Kris Jones. I am a serial entrepreneur, investor, and best-selling author. And today we have a special guest. He has been a friend of mine for nearly 15 years or so. His name is Joost de Valk. Joost, say hello.
Hey, everyone. Nice to be here.
So, Yoast, to those of you that are watching this in the SEO space, he's a familiar face, but he actually is much bigger than just a familiar face in the SEO community. Yoast is behind the famous Yoast SEO plugin. We're going to dive deeper today about the Yoast SEO plugin. We're going to talk about how Yoast just celebrated its 10th anniversary, but just to put things into context here, my buddy Yoast has built a plugin that has been installed over 135 million times. And he is on a daily basis, he and his team of nearly 120 people are managing about 11 million active users. And did I get the numbers right there, Yoast?
Yeah, it's 11 million active websites. So it's always a bit hard to figure out how many users that really is,
sure,
because some of those sites have 100 users, and then there's a couple of people that have multiple sites. So you don't really know. But it's in terms of sites we do know, and well, that is a lot of sites.
Yeah, these are huge numbers, and it's so impressive because I remember you pre Yoast SEO plugin. So we're going to dive a little deeper here. Let's start a little bit more with the backstory. Let's talk first about you. Why don't you share a little bit more about your backstory in 2 or 3 minutes, just to give us and folks that are watching a little bit a better history of you.
Yeah, well, so when we met, I was at an agency. So I started in the hosting space as an account manager, sales guy. But I'd always been a geek, coding and doing other things. And at a certain point in time, my wife was pregnant of our eldest, and I decided to work a bit closer to home and try something new. And that new thing turned out to be SEO. This is actually, funny enough, for no proper reason whatsoever at that time, started blogging in English, which turned out quite well because, well, the blogs were booming. People were doing a whole lot of cool things in the SEO space. I was adding my voice, and people liked that.
Yeah.
So I got invited to speak at some conferences after a while. Actually, through our mutual friend, Dave Naylor, who introduced me to a couple of people after I attended one of his conferences. And he said, "You should be a speaker. You shouldn't be here listening to me." So he introduced me to Danny Sullivan, actually, and to Matt Cutts. And that got the ball rolling, got me on the speaking circuit. But I was still working at that agency.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this WordPress blog as a hobby on the side, explaining to people what was happening in the CSS world, because I was all into open source and open standards already at that point, and was doing a lot of contributions to WebKit, the core of what is now Safari, Google Chrome, and even Microsoft Edge. Mm-hmm. So I was a committer in that project, was writing a lot about that, and was doing a lot of CSS-free related stuff, all pretty technical. I was blogging about that and doing that on WordPress. So time progresses, and I built some plugins to help myself do the SEO for that site, because as a consultant, I'd learned a lot of SEO. I was lucky enough to see an agency that turned out to be pretty darn good at what it did. Imagine 15 years ago, me being in a team of 14 full-time SEOs which is not, I mean, there are not even that many companies like that anymore here in the Netherlands right now. It's like, it's mostly gone up into bigger agencies, but we were pretty specialized. So left that company, joined another, but continued and doing all these this SEO stuff, a bit more speaking. I think I brought you to the Netherlands at some point for a couple of affiliate conferences and some related stuff. And well, had a couple of these plugins, was having fun with that, and at a certain point decided, hey, I need to turn all of these separate SEO plugins I have into one SEO plugin. So about 10 years ago, slightly more, I decided to start doing that and built what is now Yoast SEO. And at the same time, I decided I was kind of done with being a consultant for someone else and started doing that on my own. So I had some customers that really wanted just me. I was working for the bigger guys at that time, so working for eBay, did a very large project for The Guardian, did some work for Facebook. Well, I knew that I wasn't gonna starve, so I started on my own. And that plugin that I built became popular, to the point of becoming ridiculously popular, and me having about 1 million users after a year. And quickly figuring out that a plugin without a business model is a very expensive hobby. So started to figure out, like, how am I going to do this, etc. This was when we both started attending our good friend Marcus's conference in Munich every year. And
well, by the way, at this point, I remember you being so entrepreneurial. I remember you being frustrated that many of us in the room had already built $1 million or multi-million-dollar companies, and I remember you standing on stage and in front of your brothers and sisters, that's what we call ourselves, that go to that particular conference. And I just remember frustration. And I remember you saying, you know, I'm going to do something. And to fast forward now, congratulations on your 10-year anniversary.
Thanks.
You were probably like a solopreneur. Involved at that, you and your
yeah, so in 2010 I was alone. In 2012 we added a couple of people. My wife joined in 2013. She came from a college background, so she'd been working as a professor basically. And
she's a PhD, right?
She's a PhD, yeah. And honestly, at that point it was still quite small. There was yeah. So in 2014, before we released Yoast SEO Premium, and the real big growth started. And then I knew that we'd struck gold. And I mean, at a certain point, you know, like, okay, this is going to build a real company, and going to be a bit bigger than what we expected. But even then, I didn't really expect to do what we've done in the last few years, to be honest. I mean, growing over the last few years, we've been growing 30, 40, 50% year on year. And it's just, every time you see that happen, it's a bit of a surreal experience. Because it's just so many, and you have to figure out, like, how do you do that? And we've never taken investment. So it's always been, okay, how much cash do we have? What can we do? Where can we put that money to work? And yeah, that's
it. It's been brilliant to watch. And I know, you know, success stories aren't always up and to the right. You know, they have, you know, trials and tribulations and struggles, and you've had them, I've had them. But I want to segue into some of the meat and potatoes, kind of peeling back the onion of this. But two things. One, just to speak to the you've pulled off here. I interviewed you for an article on Forbes 3 years ago. And at that time, I think we had cited your downloads at like 30 or 40 million. So just to put that into perspective, I mean, you've almost 5 times that as an organization. But a couple of things, and then we'll dive in. What you've pulled off is really remarkable. You've mentioned that you haven't pulled dancing, but you know, I've had now 7 companies that I've founded that I've scaled, you know, past $1 million. So $1 million companies. How do you do that? And how did Yoast do it? Well, you start with a fundamental problem. And that's what we're going to spend the rest of the conversation on today, is kind of talking about how you solved a fundamental problem that the vast majority of folks who had a website were struggling with. And that's this idea of SEO. And that article that you and I worked on 3 years ago, the title of it was, "Can SEO Be Automated?" And at that time, you were quoted as saying, let's see here. You were quoted as saying that good software can take all the technical pains away, but in no way can any software ever take away the content development task or the real marketing side of things. This is something people are often mistaken about. They think installing one plugin or running one or a few pieces of software will magically get them higher rankings. It's just not that simple. Do you still feel that way, or have you kind of changed your mind on that?
No, I still feel that way. It's I do think that we can help a lot of these processes with software. Mm-hmm. But every time I come into a discussion where people mention AI as a solution for everything and et cetera, I just don't believe that anywhere in the near future, like the 5-year ahead future, our AI will be good enough to get anywhere close to writing proper text that is creative and that gets people to buy stuff.
Yeah.
And in the end, what you need to do is you need to, as you build your website, you have a couple of challenges. You have what is your website about and what's your product? Mm-hmm. And the most important thing, of course, is that you have a product or a thing that you're selling that's good. Then nothing can save you.
Sure.
Because that is what marketing is. What you need to do is you're to the market and the product wants to help you. After that, of course, there's stuff to do, and that stuff is very basic, but also very hard for a computer. Yeah. Categorizing information is something that a computer is pretty good at when it's already labeled. But if it's not labeled, that's pretty hard to do for a computer.
Sure.
So, so I think we can help, and we're trying to build software where we can help and help you write more readable text and help you better recognize the most important words in your copy, maybe, or stuff like that. But I do think that in the end, marketing is always going to be a blend of tech. Yep. And we can provide the tech. You have to bring the creativity.
I think the interesting thing about how honest you are about this idea of automation, or otherwise, kind of setting it and forgetting it. I think a lot of people who probably use your plugin see it as that automation that it's not. Now, to give it credits that, well, the thing that the Yoast SEO plugin has done successfully and continues to is it really does take most of the technical SEO considerations and doesn't require that you have to have a technical SEO on staff, because your plugin, for instance, is able to understand things about content, understand things about readability, among other things. can you kind of give us just an overview of some of the core features of the plugin, so that folks,
yeah, of course,
have a better taste, a better flavor of it?
I think you can basically separate it into a couple of pieces. So on the one hand, you have the technical SEO framework that provides things like canonical URLs, schema integration, where we automatically add schema to pages as much as we can and as well as we can. Title optimization, the ability, we give you the ability to write meta descriptions because it wouldn't be there otherwise. Mm-hmm. So that's the technical framework. There's a lot of tech stuff in there, and most of that stuff I don't want people to even think about, because the standards are bullshit and annoying. Yeah. And we're constantly optimizing those and working with those. And you'll see me constantly in threads on Twitter as well with Google engineers, literally going about how can we prevent this sort of needless indexing, and because we're fixing that for 10 million sites. I mean, this is not us fixing it for one small site. We're fixing it for millions of sites at the same time. It matters if we optimize indexing by a bit. It really makes, well, it saves in larger amounts than anything else I can do. So that's the technical SEO side. The other side is the content analysis, which splits up into two bits, which is the SEO analysis, which tries to give you feedback on, hey, this will rank well based on what we know. And well, there's a lot of factors that go into that. This is something that we redo every year, where we go through these factors and see like, hey, is this still up to date, and is this working well enough? And we have readability analysis. We really have a team of linguists here that constantly refining rules on how can we make this text more readable. Sure. Now, this readability analysis is very close in some ways to some other tools that are on the market. The difference between what we do and what everybody else does is that we do this in JavaScript in your browser, and we don't send this data to our servers. So we don't do any big data stuff. Mm-hmm. The added benefit of that to you is that your content stays your content. Mm-hmm. We don't see it, we don't know it, we don't want anything to do with it. I think it's a typical result of us being a European company, mm-hmm. And having, well, slightly different ideas. Average. And we also do that in a lot of languages. So we, in our premium product, we recognize keywords a bit better. What we do is, so if what you put in is a focus keyword where you say, hey, I want to rank for this. Mm-hmm. And if you have our premium product, we'll recognize other forms of that as well. So and if you put in as your focus keyword buy shoe, then we would recognize buying shoes as well. We would recognize all these different word forms. Mm-hmm. Of course, that's something that we have to build per language. For now, we've just released Italian support for that today, but we support English, French, Spanish, Russian, Dutch, German, and we're adding more languages as we go along with that team of language researchers / developers, mm-hmm. Who are building all of this. So yeah, so it's content analysis, mm-hmm. Which is SEO and readability analysis, and on the other hand, it's technical SEO, from anything from XML sitemaps to canonical to, well, everything.
One of the things I know you're spending more time on is schema, and can you just speak to it? And first, kind of what is it for folks that might not know, and then what kind of opportunities are there on the Yoast SEO plugin to optimize for it?
Yeah, so Google has been moving away from this classic notion of 10 blue links for years, and for years they've been making these richer results in the search results, and to do that they need to understand a bit better what's on that page. Mm-hmm. So they've had all sorts of different methods of doing that, and they've now basically settled on we're not going to use micro formats anymore. That's a thing of the past. We're not going to use RDFA anymore. It's all going to be Schema.org through JSON LD markup, which basically means that we provide in the source code of the page a blob, a condensed bit of JavaScript that has structured data about what is on that page. And that structured data is specified through a standard that's called Schema.org, which is a project that was started by the 4 major search engines, but is mostly, to be honest now, headed by Google. The people working on this full time are very smart people, but most of them work for Google. Most of the work is done by Dan Brickley, who used to be at the BBC. He's in London, but he works for Google now. And they're driving that growth and that the ever expanding set of structures on how to describe stuff. So that can be a product, that can be a job, that can be a local business. There's a lot of different things there. So as that grows, Google is adding more and more of these rich snippets, and they have a lot of these different things for that. So they have products, which we support fully with WooCommerce. They have FAQs and how-tos, which is, I think, one of the most interesting things that they've added in the last few years, and certainly the most, the best way of doing SEO at the moment. If you want to do something like right now that'll add value to your site tomorrow, is go into one of your more important pages and add an FAQ block if you can, with some good questions about that, and you'll see it pop up in Google like that. Yep. Like literally, as soon as the page gets respidered, you'll see that Google adds an FAQ block below that page in the search results, and you literally take up more real estate in the search results. So you take up more room, pushing your competitors down and getting more of your content into that search result.
Yeah, that piece of it right there is, for me, the snapshot of why folks need to be using this, right? Because at the end of the day, if you could drive up click-through rate on your organic search listing, chances are it's going to move you up, plus it's going to drive more traffic to your site.
Yeah, it's and all the ways that they're doing this, it's you've got recipe. If you have a recipe site, you're probably already doing schema, because otherwise you basically disappeared from the search results. Yeah. And jobs and other things this is happening as well. This will be coming to literally every sector in the world. It's just a matter of time and when they get to you.
Yep.
And if they get to you at the level of recipes, then if you're not providing them with the best structured data that you can, you've basically already lost.
Yep.
So our challenge is, we want to make this simple. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to bother you with the technical standards. What we have is an FAQ block that will call a structured data block, so you know that is what it does, but that's everything. All that you need to do is add questions and answers, and we'll do all the metadata, and we'll make it work. That's relatively easy for FAQ and how-to things. It becomes slightly harder as these standards, get bigger. For recipes right now, things like calorie calculators become real problems. Sure. So there's a lot of work to be done there. Yep. This is also where we'll be expanding a lot, I think, in the next few years.
Can you speak to, one of the things that's always kind of, I've been really curious about, and I think we have talked about it in private a little bit, but you've built a substantial business, right? But you give away the tool most of the time. So what are the things, what's the real base case for why people should make that investment in upgrading to the premium Yoast SEO tool?
Well, honestly, the consideration we make all the time is this feature going to make people better at competing with everyone else?
Mm-hmm.
If so, we put it in the free plugin. Is this feature just here to make you more efficient at SEOing your site? Then we put it in the premium plugin. So if your time then your money, then you buy premium. If you can't afford it, you don't have to worry, because everything that you need to rank is in the free plugin and will always be in the free plugin, because that's what our mission is, to give everyone the chance to compete with everyone else.
Yep.
So we're basically, in many ways, we see ourselves as an add-on on the mission of WordPress. WordPress's mission is democratizing publishing. Mm-hmm. And I think that you can only democratize publishing when you also democratize reaching an audience.
Sure.
So, well, that's why the free plugin has everything that that you need to rank.
Yep.
And in the premium plugin, we do a lot of things that make life simpler. Mm-hmm. So we recognize these word forms for you, which helps you optimize your text faster. Mm-hmm. We, when you delete a page or a post or a category or a tag, we say, hey, we've created a redirect for you. You can change it here. We try to do all these things that keep your site healthy and that help you maintain that site health over time in an easier way. That's what we do in premium. Helping you rank is what we do for everyone.
I know you were working on this a couple of years back. Have you made progress on providing your tool set, if you will, to other platforms other than WordPress?
So we've done that. We have Yoast SEO for Typo 3, for instance, which is a pretty popular open source CMS in parts of, there's a couple of other platforms where we're available. The problem is that all of the other platforms are shrinking.
Yep.
So WordPress is growing so fast. As we were talking 3 years ago about this, WordPress would have probably had a market share around that time of about 28, 29% of the web. Mm-hmm. And right now we're 37.2%. And the flywheel of WordPress growth is really kicking off. Actually, it's 37.3, I just saw, because it's added 1.3% worldwide market share in 7 days.
Wow.
So for all costs, CMSs on the planet. So
you, yep. Oh, go ahead. So that's where you've made the
it's basically why.
Yeah.
We don't invest too much in our growing. That's basically the.
You know, one of the other things I wanted to mention, because people might not know this, but you have other products, you do, right? So you have a whole university. Can you speak to that, some of the education that you guys do at Yoast, and some of the other products you guys may have?
Next to premium, we have a couple of other plugins which are specific for specific areas. So we have a local SEO plugin. If you optimize for local business, we have a news SEO plugin. If you optimize for news sites, you'll encounter this stuff as you're building your site and your work with us. We also have Yoast Academy, which is our online education tool. We have free and premium courses in Yoast Academy, free courses on basic SEO stuff, but also if you've never worked with WordPress before, we've got a free course on how to use WordPress. And WordPress has been investing a lot into the block editor, the new editing environment. We've got a free course for that. We've got over 100,000 students in our Yoast Academy now. It's a vast growing empire of all these courses that we've built with our team. Honestly, it's both a product and a marketing thing, of course, because which is why a lot of these courses are free, because we want people to use WordPress and we want people to use the block editor, because that's good for us as well. So that's why we give some of this stuff away for free. free. We want to give you everything you need to rank. So which is why a lot of our courses are free. We've actually made our pretty complete SEO course now free as well for the COVID period. As we thought, well, hey, a lot of these people are coming online now for the first time and need to dive in. So we've made our I think the best starter course we have for SEO available for free as well.
It's awesome. Yeah, all of our new hires and all of our interns benefit from all that education. So thank you for all that. Do you have your ring on by chance?
I do not, actually.
You don't? All right.
That is bad, isn't it?
Well, no, I just thought, kind of in closing, I thought we would chat about a little bit more of our personal relationship, to the extent that within the context of this event that we go to, right? So Yoast and I are part of a small community of growth marketers. It is an SEO conference, but a lot of the folks that get invited to this really run growth for large enterprise companies, publicly traded companies, from Facebook to Disney, et cetera. So you would agree that, this is probably one of the coolest things that ever happened in our life, because that network of people within that group are pretty extraordinary. And Marcus Tandler, who is the founder of it, I've been friends with for almost 20 years. And this is someone who really deserves a medal for bringing together so many like-minded individuals. But what I wanted to ask is what's been the biggest benefit to you and your business and your being part of SEO Oktoberfest?
Well, I think what you find at some point is that a large portion of what the things you're able to achieve is through your network, and just being able to reach out and ask questions. And on the other hand, it's people that you see are your peers, but at the same time drive you to do better, or well, in a lot of cases, make you go nuts because they're teasing you about not. That's what it definitely did for me. I mean, being teased about, hey, but why are you doing this as a consultant? Why aren't you starting your own thing? Why aren't you? And a lot of these things. But that's definitely what brought to me. And at the same time, well, you can attest to that. We have some of our friends, one of them recently joined Shopify after having been at Facebook for a while. I mean, it's this group of people that are everywhere. And if you need someone, you can, and that feels bad because it's so in crowd, which is very, opposed to how I normally work in the world. I'm very much about everything being open and try to, but it is a rather good group of friends where you can also just ask things and not have it be public, which sometimes is also very helpful, because being an entrepreneur is also sometimes very painful. I mean, in the beginning of this COVID period, the first month in March, we had to start working from home, and for the first time, we at Yoast had a loss in revenue compared to the year before. We were still making money, and we've not really been in trouble, but I saw a decline in growth, so I started asking, like, hey, what's everyone seeing? What's happening? And you can talk about these things and have a bit of a group that that can show you, like, hey, what's happening? Is this just me? Am I doing something wrong, or is more happening here? And I think that's really valuable. You need that peer group.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's the friendships. I think we've all opened doors for one another. Pretty much the entire group. We've looked for opportunities to help one another, but really it's the friendships. And just some context. So I was asking you about the ring. So this is an exclusive event where you have to, it's only by invitation. And so if you get invited to be there as a speaker, which Yoast and I have, both of us, I think I'm at 7. I think you're at what, 9 years that you've done it ish, something like that. But
yeah, I think 9ish. Yeah.
Yeah. But the point is that it's by invite only. And then you go and you speak in front of a small group of really successful individuals. So it is as terrifying each year and in and out, not because we're not experienced public speakers, not because we don't have really great content, because the peer group is really that high quality. And the other piece is that you literally get invited back only at the request of the attendees. So the attendees each year decide who comes back. And both of us should be proud, because I think every year that we've attended, we've gotten invited back year after year. And the years that I missed were because I had children and stuff like that. So
same here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've honestly not been the last 2 reasons, but the only year I missed before that was because I had a daughter. Yeah, it's literally because of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've seen, each other, and the group has seen one another go through career changes, have children, etc. The ring is something that if you get invited back for a 5th time, there was the ring. And it's just one of those sort of symbols of success that has a sort of intrinsic value. And it really speaks to not only the quality of that group, but candidly, success and achievement comes through focus, dedication, and a willingness to put yourself out there. And I think SEO Oktoberfest really represents the sort of embodiment of what could happen. So those are watching this right now, and other folks are watching it. And Yoast, you're one of that brand, that name is synonymous with search engine marketing. I would say that if we looked at a sort of Google trend and just a visibility and recognition, I would say that it's probably one of the most defining products, companies, individuals, and words to describe our industry. So I want to congratulate you on 10 years at Yoast. Wish you and a lot of my good friends, your wife, your brother, and many others that I'm friends with, nothing but success moving forward. I'm really honored that I've had a catbird sort of view of your success. Opened up to you, and I can't wait for your career, man. I love you as a friend, and nothing but success moving forward.
Likewise. I can only say the same. The thing I thought about last night as I was thinking about doing this interview with you today was that I think the first time we met was in 2008, SES New York. And your wife was there too, because you were all still at Pepper Jam.
Yep.
That's a long time ago.
Yep.
And yeah, it's just to consider that path it's ridiculous. It's also standing still and considering that path is not something I do very well. Taking time to reflect on your own success is not a thing that and the luck that you've had, because even though I do think that a lot of this is hard work, etc., I also want to recognize, especially in this day and age, that I am ridiculously privileged.
Yeah.
And well, for instance, becoming part of a group like SEO Oktoberfest is part of that privilege, in a way. And well, that is both good, but it's also good to realize that that privilege is not something that you might have completely achieved on your own, and that is therefore up to you to use that success to empower others. which is something I think we do at Yoast for everyone out there. That's what we try to do through building Yoast, but also through making WordPress core itself better all the time. Yeah. Well, if I can leave some words for everybody listening to this, if you're successful, use that success and empower others, and let's grow this to something nicer together.
It's awesome, man. Really appreciate your time this morning. Please send my best to your family, and
I will.
We will see each other soon.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Cheers, man.
See ya.